here. It's good to have the Cret Singers with us from the Valley. Lois Ann used to be a member here, and we love and appreciate them. Good to have the Arnolds with us. Ryan and Mary, if you haven't met them, introduce yourself to them because they plan to be coming here as well. Allison, I was about to overlook you. Good to have you with us. Allison used to be a member here as well. We're in Daniel chapter 6. Now, I want you to understand the age of this man. He's been in captivity 70 years. Let's say he is 17 when he is taken into captivity. Here's a man that's in his 80s, 90s, as we come to this chapter. And we're going to see in a moment as he's thrown into the lion's den, being 80 or 90 years old, Eddie will tell you, that would hurt, to say the least, if there's no lions in there. So those bones, they're not what they used to be. Those muscles are not what they used to be. So keep in mind, from chapter 5 to chapter 6, we are changing kingdoms. From the Babylonian kingdom to the Medo-Persian kingdom. Now there are those who try to argue that Cyrus and Darius are the same. We're going to show you that cannot be the case. Notice it says, in that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius the Median, notice he's a Mede, took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Now look at the red. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus. Notice the Persian. Cyrus is a Persian. Darius is a Mede. And notice the conjunction "and" shows they're two different people. Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and also in the reign of Cyrus. Now there's a reason for that. They were co-regents. That means they reigned together. So keep that in mind. And Darius started to reign with Cyrus after Cyrus had been king about 3 years, as we'll notice later in our study. So as we come to Daniel chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom. And over these, over the princes, 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. Now, Darius is doing a very wise thing. It's what Jethro told Moses. Moses, you've taken too much upon yourself. You're going to have to set up men to help handle the problems, or these people are going to drive you nuts. And sure enough, he did. And so now we've got 120 princes to whom the people can take their problems, and if they can't handle it, 3 presidents that they can solve the problem. And over the 3 presidents is Daniel. So all problems, hopefully, would be solved and would not come before Darius. He would suffer no damage or interference in his kingly life. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Now God had providentially moved things in such a way that Daniel's won the heart of Darius. And he can see what a great man Daniel truly is. And so he sets Daniel over everybody. Well, guess what? The princes and the other two presidents don't like that. Here is a foreigner, a Jew, who is now the number one man next to Darius. So they're going to try to do something about that. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. But they could not find none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful. Neither was there any error or fault found in him. Well, they set out to find a problem with him as far as his political standings and practices were concerned, and they could find none. Man, can you imagine trying to set out with our politicians today to try to find a fault with them? The problem would be, there'd be so many, which one do I choose to use? But not with Daniel. Daniel was very faithful to the king. He was a very good citizen, and he was doing his job well. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Then these presidents and princes assembled together the king and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. Now, think about this. They said, look, we can't find any accusation to bring against him relative to the kingdom. So somehow, we're going to have to bring an accusation against him as it relates to his God. Now, if someone set out to do that to you, what accusation might they bring? You know, on Facebook years ago, and you might have seen it recently as well, if you were accused of being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Now, you just think about that. If you were accused of being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Now, if somebody wanted to bring a charge against you as it relates to your God, what would it be? Oh, they attend when they want to. They don't know much Bible, and they've been a member of the Lord's church 40 years. And they admit their prayer life is practically non-existent. And they never visit anybody that's lost, sick, or having troubles. What would the charge be? Now let me tell you what they're going to have to do with Daniel. They know Daniel is dedicated to the kingdom. They also know that Daniel is dedicated to God. So they got to find somewhere wherein his dedication is going to conflict with something relative to the kingdom. So they have a brilliant idea, they think. So they go to Darius. All the presidents of the kingdom, here's what they're saying, and the governors, and the princes, and the counselors, and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute, and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask the petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Can you believe this? They go before the king in their line. Now, you've never known of, surely, a politician that would lie. Have you? Oh, have you ever known one that would tell the truth totally? That's the issue. They say all the presidents is for this. Well, guess who one of the presidents is? Daniel. And he is the chief president. Do you think Daniel would go along with a decree that would say you can't talk to the God of heaven for 30 days? No, he wouldn't go along with that at all. And think about a king that would entertain that kind of law. What got Nebuchadnezzar in trouble? Pride. What got Belshazzar into trouble? Pride. And you think about someone so prideful, they got the attitude you can't petition anyone, no man nor God, save me, for 30 days. Now that's pretty arrogant, to say the least. So, verse 8, now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which ordereth not. We want you to sign into law that no one, any man or God, for 30 days, save you. You're the only one. Please sign it into law. And sign it as per the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be changed and cannot be ordered one way or the other. Whereupon King Darius signed the writing and the decree. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open, in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. Notice, he did not do it as an act of rebellion. I'll show you, Darius, that I'm not going along with this. He didn't do that. He knew the decree had been signed. He hated that. But he knew his love for God. And he wanted to talk to his God. And he did not change his regular practice of going into his home and praying 3 times a day facing Jerusalem. The psalmist said in Psalm 55:17, evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. The psalmist pointed out, I pray at least 3 times a day. Now, all of us should pray at least 3 times a day just to thank God for our food. Not to mention anything else. And we should be a praying people. Now, there's a principle taught in the Old Testament that the Jews were to face Jerusalem when praying, when out of town, when captive, whatever the case might be. So notice, in 1 Kings 8, if you read that, the Ark of the Covenant is being moved into the new temple that Solomon has built. And it says, if thy people go out to battle against their enemy, whithersoever thou shalt send them, and shall pray unto the Lord toward the city which thou hast chosen, and toward the house that I have built for thy name, then hear thou in heaven their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. The temple represented the presence of God. when Israel became so ungodly in the book of Ezekiel, a chapter is given where they can see the presence of God leaving the temple. I'm not going to dwell among these people and them doing the ungodly things that they're doing. Then also again in 1 Kings 8, talking about a people that might be in captivity. And so return unto thee with all their heart. In other words, a people that's been carried away. And with all their soul in the land of their enemies, which led them away captive, and pray unto thee toward their land, unto their fathers, the city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name. Father, if they carried your people into captivity, and they're willing to straighten up and face Jerusalem and where the temple is, and pray and ask for your forgiveness, will you not help rescue them? See, that's the thought. And the answer is yes. In 2 Chronicles 6:34, if thy people go out to war against their enemies by the way that thou shalt send them, and they pray unto thee toward this city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name, in essence, will you not bless them? Yeah, I'll bless them. And there's other passages. I just wanted to put a few in there to show you why he was doing what he was doing. Then we come to verses 11 and 12. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any man or god or man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which ordereth not. Yes, I did that. I sure did. Now, they're going to point out and have that Daniel has not stopped his practice. Now, either they were hid in his house, which I don't believe, or they were standing outside his window watching him, and they were spying on him. They knew he loved God so much that he would not stop praying just because a law was made against praying. That is conviction. And that's what you need. That's what I need. Then answered they and said before the king that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, and that's one of their problems. They can't stand that a foreigner is over them. Regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition, watch it, 3 times a day. How did they know that? They had to be watching. They set up a law that they knew that Daniel would not honor because he loved God too much. Then the king, when he heard these words, watch this, was sore displeased with himself. Not Daniel, himself. Have you ever done anything you thought was so stupid that you were really displeased with self? Not somebody else, but you. I have. I think about everybody has. And set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. Now he's going to try to rescue Daniel from the mess that he, the king, got Daniel in. And he labored to the going down of the sun to deliver him. But he can't get it done. He's trying as hard as he can. Now you remember the contributions of the four world empires that made everything ready for the coming of the Christ in the fullness of time, when God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, Galatians 4:4. The time had to be right, and it would be during these kings that the kingdom would be set up. Daniel 2:44, and it would be an everlasting kingdom. Well, while they were in Babylon, they came up with synagogues so the Jews could meet and worship God. Then the Medo-Persians, as you see here, came up with a total commitment to law. And that's the way it's got to be, to God's law. And that was important that humanity see that. Then Alexander the Great tried to Greekanize, Hellenize the world by giving the world a common language, and that being Greek. And then the Romans were known for their building of roads. All roads lead to Rome. So everything's set up perfectly for the coming of the Christ. Then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, Know, O king, that the law of the Medes and Persians is, that no decree or statute which the king establisheth may be changed. Now you know the law, and this law cannot be changed. And so something's got to be done with Daniel. And we know what's got to be done with Daniel. He's got to be thrown in the lion's den. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, Thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. That's what the king was hoping, because the king had made a foolish law and he knew it. And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of the Lord's, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. You know, it might have been the practice that each night, here's his bed chamber, outside in the hallway, maybe a huge hallway, foyer of some kind, soft music was being played by those who could handle the instruments in a very beautiful way. But the king wouldn't tolerate that this night. It wasn't a time to sleep. And he wouldn't eat. It might be that every night they'd bring the king midnight snack or just before going to bed snack. Nuh-uh. He wasn't going to eat it. He couldn't sleep. He was worried about the stupid law that he himself had made. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God whom thou servest continually able to deliver thee from the lions? Was he able? Can you not just envision the king tore all to pieces, trying to find out if Daniel made it through the night? Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. Don't you know that was a beautiful sound to Darius? A beautiful sound. My God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no harm. I've done nothing to hurt you, king. And I've tried to live in an innocent way before my God. Then was the king exceeding glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. How much of hurt was found on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? None. How much on Daniel? None. You know why? The God you and I serve is able. And we're going to see that more in a moment. And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives, and the lions had the mastery over them, and brake all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the pit. Now, as they're being thrown into the pit, the lions are hitting them with their paws so hard, they're breaking their bones before they ever hit the floor. These lions are definitely hungry. You can't say, well, the reason Daniel wasn't hurt, they fed the lions real good that day, and so the lions were not hungry. No. Or those lions were pretty well tamed. They wouldn't hurt anyone. Well, we find out that's not true. Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Now, we might ask, why did he survive? Well, he was a lion tamer. No, he wasn't a lion tamer. Well, the lions were not hungry. No. He hid in a corner. No. He had a whip. No. He caught on the edge of the den when they threw him in, and he hung there until the morning. Try that. See how tired you're going to get. You're not going to be able to hold on. That's not it. There were no lions in the den. Oh, yeah. Those people that were thrown in there with their wives and children found out, yeah, there's lions in there. King Darius had him removed. No. He went out there first thing in the morning to check on him and had him pulled out of there when he found out he was all right. Daniel made faces that scared the lions. No, that didn't work. Here's why Daniel made it. Because our God is able. In Daniel 3:17, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. You know, Nebuchadnezzar gave Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego a second chance. And I tell you what, you boys will fall to your knees and worship that image when you hear the music, well. But if not, you're going to be cast into a fiery furnace. And who is that God who is able to deliver thee? Well, he is going to find out. The boys said, we're not cautious to answer thee. We're not going to bend, we're not going to bow, and we're not going to worship. And if you throw us in the furnace, so be it. And if God chooses not to deliver us, that's fine. But we want you to know, O King, our God is able to deliver us. And he did. And in Daniel 6:20, and when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel, and the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? Oh, yeah. He is able. Now, I'm convinced in the Hall of Fame of Faith Daniel's mentioned by implication. It says, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, and stopped the mouths of lions. I believe that applies to Daniel. Now, lessons we can learn. We're to obey the laws of the land unless the laws of the land violates the laws of God. We must obey God rather than men. And that's what Daniel was going to do. We got to trust God. Daniel did that. We got to do our job faithfully when working somewhere. He was a faithful servant of the king, and he lived faithfully for God. We got to be honest. We got to maintain a great prayer life. And we got to believe in the wonderful providence of God. And we got to believe that God controls all things, including animals. Could he shut the mouths of the lions? Yes. Could he send ravens to feed Elijah? Yes, he did. Could he make a donkey talk? Yes. Could he make a fish come up with money so that he, Jesus, and his apostles could pay the temple taxes? Oh, yeah. God's in control. And we got to learn that. All right, right fast. You heard that first bell. Question, comments, observations. Now, next week, it's going to start getting much harder. So let me encourage you to read Daniel 7 for next week. Work on it. Figure out its meaning. And be prepared to make comments in class when necessary and so forth. I appreciate all of y'all's kind attention. Thank you much.